The White House YouTube channel randomly put up a video showing violence in video games. Now, I'm not sure if they pulled it down. Somebody originally sent it to me. I saw it. It was 100% up on the White House YouTube channel. But then I went back a few days later, and it wasn't there anymore. Or maybe I didn't look back far enough or whatever. But they randomly posted a video that had violent video games, that had showed scenes from violent video games. Now, the thing I loved about it is it got absolutely obliterated in the dislikes. There were so many dislikes. So in other words, people were saying, what the fuck are you putting this up for? It's an attempt to try to prep you if they try to come after video games in one way or another. Like, oh, look, it's so bad. Look at the violence in the video games. We posted it on our YouTube channel if you want to take a look. But everybody's like, hey, fuck off, man. Fuck off. So Vice News put together a montage in response to this. And the montage is of politicians blaming video games for actual crime. Take a look.
Also, video games. I'm hearing more and more people say the level of violence on video games is really shaping young people's thoughts.
All you're focusing on right now is gun control. What about the violence in our video games?
What about the impact of violence in the entertainment culture?
A callous, corrupt, and corrupting shadow industry. Vicious, violent video games.
When they go over the edge, they transpose themselves. They become part of one of those video games. And perhaps that's why all these assault weapons are used.
Interaction between violence, the realism that you find in games and movies.
Film, television, music, dress, technology, games, they've become one giant playground filled with accessible evil, darker than ever before.
Now video games like Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct, and Doom make our children more active participants in simulated violence.
They're able to hook into the internet and play video games that are extraordinarily violent, cause the blood pressure to rise and the adrenaline to flow as they play those games and see people killed or be killed.
Isn't making a game and selling it that encourages a kid to point a gun at a television set encouraging criminality? I mean, we're all aware of this incredible outbreak of gun violence.
That is so fucking annoying. Because every single one of those politicians has no clue what they're talking about. They're just making it up. They're just creating a connection in their own minds and then sharing it with the world, even though it's a really idiotic point to make. So this is what I call a red herring. That's what that is. It's like, oh, something's happening, and it looks like the catalyst of it is the wide availability of guns. Well, what about this other thing over here that isn't at all really linked to the problem in any way, shape, or form? So it's a diversion tactic. It's a giant red herring. And by the way, I think one of the reasons why this has been such a common talking point for so long is that the video game industry doesn't pay nearly as many bribes, legal bribes to our politicians in the form of campaign contributions as the gun industry does. So the leadership of the NRA pays virtually the entire Republican Party, and they do that because they get money from gun makers, and the gun makers say, don't do any new gun laws at all, no matter how common sense they are, no matter how reasonable they are. You know, universal background checks, the NRA sued to try to defeat. So the video game industry probably doesn't pay nearly as much money in legal bribes, and so that's why politicians, it's so easy for them to shit on the video game industry, try to act like they're the problem, come up with these preposterous arguments in the process of making that case. And then, listen, they'd have no problem immediately cracking down on violent video games. I think we've gotten kind of lucky that they haven't done that to this point, to be honest with you. Because look at what they did, for example, with online poker. There was gambling online. One night, they just took it away. Just one day, they said, sorry, shutting it all down. I know people who had a tremendous amount of money saved up in those, different poker websites. And they just were never able to get their money back. Because the government said, we're shutting it down. Now, why? How did that happen? Well, one of the main reasons is the online poker industry, the online gambling industry didn't pay their bribes to the politicians. You know who did? The casinos. So casinos lobbied politicians to shut down online gambling because they viewed it as their competition, and then the politicians were their little bitches, the puppets to their donors, and they did it, and they took away your freedom and stole your money in the process. For an industry that didn't cause any problems for anybody, it's freedom. Yeah, you want to gamble online? Gamble online. Who gives a fuck? But they shut it all down overnight. Now, the video game industry, they're in a similar position. They're probably not paying nearly as much in bribes as the NRA is. They're not organized as much. So it's so easy for politicians to routinely point to them and say, they're the problem, they're the problem, they're the problem. How condescending is that argument, too? It's like, hey, if you go see Rambo, you're at risk of maybe doing a mass shooting afterwards. Nonsense! And people can tell the difference between what's fake and what's real, you idiots. I got Mortal Kombat on the screen right here. You think I can't tell that this is fake? That the man who freezes people named Sub-Zero and then rips their fucking head off, that's not real? Do I actually have a lust to rip people's heads off now, you fucking clowns? Of course I don't, but they don't even care. Like, even if you point out how empirically wrong they are, they don't care. Whatever, I'm just going to keep blaming them because it's an easy scapegoat, and that's fine, and I'll keep taking my NRA checks and won't even do universal background checks. So go fuck yourselves. And everybody's onto their bullshit, you know? It's not even just gamers who look at their arguments and go, you guys are fucked up. It's people who aren't gamers too, because we're not idiots. We look at it and we go, yeah, we know people can tell the difference between playing a first-person shooter game and shooting up a fucking school. And the fact that you think, oh, that's, hey, you're blurring the lines and making it something somebody wants to do. You're making that up. You are completely and utterly making that up. In the same way that when we watch Rambo or you watch a fucking Liam Neeson movie, Taken or some shit, you're not like, oh, I must go and fight the bad guys. Where's my gun? It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So it's just sad. It's an industry that's scapegoated. Is that a word? Scapegoated? I know scapegoat is, but can you say scapegoated? Whatever. It's an industry where they place the blame, and it's shitty, man. But this is what we're used to in our politics. A bunch of corrupt idiots trying diversionary tactics to protect their sacred cow industries because those industries pay them money.